Another sellout crowd at AT&T Park. I know what you're thinking. Where the hell is the governor? Why are we stuck with this guy? Always a bridesmaid, lieutenant governors. But I'm grateful Leslie made the phone call. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a few words with you, and I know what's on your mind because I decided to do something a little bit differently. I actually asked you what you wanted me to talk about, and this turned out to be a huge mistake. I will never do this again. Literally thousands of you decided to take up the call. I will not go into detail about what many of you said, but let's just say most of it cannot be repeated in public. Many of you made the point that it really doesn't matter what the hell you say, we're not going to remember it anyway. Someone said, this one hurt. This one hurt me a lot. Someone said, not again. You spoke at my community college graduation, and it was terrible. Others were at least a little more friendly. They said, where the hell's your wife? She's a hell of a lot better speaker. At least that one was closer to home. May I suggest that it got a little racy, I'll admit it, some of these. But this one, I thought this was going to start out nice. They said, may I suggest you give your speech without a shirt on? I was thinking, that's what I was thinking. I was starting to feel, my spirits were lifted. Until I read on. Said, not because we won't be repulsed, but it will just simply be a more interesting conversation than whatever you're going to say after the ceremony is done. There were a few legitimate ones. I got to tell you, you know what? I was surprised by this. They said, can you just please tell them that it's still okay to live with your parents? How many of you are still living with your parents? Damn. I know the economy's tough. But, and here was the best one of all. This one is the best one of all. It says, just tell them this, no matter how big you get, no matter how far you go, always remember to call your mother. Good advice. Good advice. Well, I know I'm the only thing standing between you and the conferral degrees, so the other advice was you better keep this short because if you keep talking, I'm out of here. So let me do my best. I was going to say all this stuff, but I'll pick up. There were two other themes. There were actually 5 or 6, but there were 2 other, I thought, important themes that came through in the crowdsourced speech that I'm about to give. And that was the importance of diversity. And you heard a little of that from Eduardo and Jonathan, and Peter reinforced that. So I want to begin there because I think it's a profoundly important point. And you can't be here at SF State, you can't be here in San Francisco without thinking about the following. I don't know if you're like me, but it can get pretty damn depressing waking up and turning on the TV every day and listening to the radio and the news, where literally nations and people are being torn apart because of racial and religious and ethnic controversies that are fueling fanaticism and fueling terror. But think about this. Think about where we are. Think about all of you. Here we are in San Francisco, one of the most diverse cities, in one of the most diverse regions, in the most diverse state, California, in the world's most diverse democracy, the United States of America. And I heard Bill Clinton literally say this a week ago. He said, the world looks to us, to you, to see that it's possible to live together, to advance together, and prosper together across every conceivable and imaginable difference. What makes San Francisco State not just good, but great. What makes this city not just good, but great. At our best, we don't just tolerate our diversity, we celebrate our diversity. It's a powerful point. Sure, we celebrate all those interesting differences, but at the end of the day, Peter made this point. At the end of the day, we unite around our common humanity. Dr. King was right. We are all bound together by a web of mutuality. We are all in this together. It's about communitarianism. It's about reconciling those differences. Number two, it just seems appropriate after I got all the advice to, well, just say what Steve Jobs said. That ain't even fair. Underneath all of your comments and suggestions was a question about leadership. You guys all seem starved for heroes. But it was interesting when I went through all your comments, it struck me that you were focusing on titles. You were focusing on being something in order to do something. And I thought you guys got it all wrong. Think about this. I just finally saw that movie, Selma. It took me a while. It's a wonderful movie. But it's interesting. It reminded me, you know, the most transformational leaders in our history had a few things in common. Think about Dr. King. Think about Martin Luther King. We didn't just celebrate a year ago that March on Washington celebrating former President Martin Luther King. We celebrated an extraordinary leader. We don't celebrate out here in California former Governor Cesar Chavez Day. We don't celebrate the life and times of a former Prime Minister by the name of Gandhi. It's interesting, isn't it? Remember when Nelson Mandela was getting sick a year and a half, 2 years ago, and folks were lamenting he was back in hospital, in and out of hospital. It kept saying on the screens and all those cable shows, it so often said, leader Nelson Mandela rehospitalized. It rarely said ex-president Nelson Mandela rehospitalized. I remember graduating a few years ago, and at the time there was a remarkable leader, the last name of Havel, something called the Velvet Revolution. He became president of Czechoslovakia. And it's interesting, he wrote extensively how becoming president de-geniused him. He talked about the constraints of office. And it got me thinking, what do Havel, Mandela, King, and Gandhi, what do they all have in common at the peak of their influence? At the peak of their influence. Think 1988, 85, 59, pick a date with Gandhi in 1919, 20, 21, I don't know the exact date. Think about two things they had in common. Well, you know one of them if you're students of history. One of them was jail time. I'm not recommending that. I'm just suggesting a point. The other thing was they exercised their moral authority. They didn't wait around to be something to do something. We could go on and talking about the life of Martin Luther King, but I bet some of you would struggle to tell me 2 or 3 things he did outside of Constitution in his one term as president, but you could go on and talk about his transformational leadership. The long-winded point is you don't have to be something to do something. Take responsibility. Step up and step in. Because at the end of the day, folks, we are our behaviors. I'm spending a lot of time in LA. Eat your heart out, Dodgers. I'm here with the Giants fans. And I was down, Annette knows this. I don't know if any of you have been down to LA. There's a version of the 101 called the 405. Man, a lot of traffic. And there was this great billboard a few years back. It says, you're not stuck in traffic. And you're like, how the hell, who put this billboard up? It's the 405. And you're driving along and you move about 200 yards, takes about 30 minutes. You get closer to the billboard and you realize underneath the bold letters that say you're not stuck in traffic, in parentheses it says, you are traffic. Think about that. Society becomes how we behave. We are our behaviors. We are our dysfunctional systems. We are the things we struggle about and the things we celebrate. So my long-winded message to you is take account. Life can either happen to you or for you. You got to step up. You got to step in. Don't be a bystander. You have agency to change the course of things, to solve the big challenges. But my final message is this, because you all express this as well, a hell of a lot of anxiety. You're all so perfect. All so perfect, aren't you? But underneath it all, there's all that little bit of anxiety Eduardo talked about. We all have it. And so I just want to make this point because I went around, I know my time's up. I heard the horn. You warned me. I read your tweet. I want to make this point. I want to make it because it was made better than anyone else. Someone said that the secret of all success, I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. What is the secret of all success? They said the secret of all success is moving from failure to failure with enthusiasm. That was, by the way, Winston Churchill who said that. And I kind of like that. And I want to encourage you this. Parents, don't pay attention to this. This is not what you're teaching your kids. I want all of you to start failing forward fast. Mistakes are a portal of discovery. If you're not failing, you're not growing. I have a business. I'm proud. I got 19 businesses, close to 1,000 employees. I say that not to impress you, but to impress upon you. One fundamental point. I have a failure award in my businesses. I reward the employee who screws up the most. You should come to our annual Christmas party. We have January's failure trying to compete with February's failure. Everybody's stepping up there talking about how they screwed up more than the other guy. I love it. It's about taking initiative. It's about being accountable. It's not about waiting for a guy or gal on the white horse to come save the day. Make mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. And remember, all of you, to call your mother. Thank you all very, very much.